I want to tell you about someone I know, Dylan. He's 28 now, and if you ever meet him, you'd never guess the kind of weight he's carried on his shoulders. See, Dylan spent most of his life being treated like a disappointment by the very people who were supposed to lift him up. His mother, Lillian. God, where do I start? She wasn't some cartoon villain. She wasn't screaming or slamming doors. But the way she made Dylan feel, like he was invisible. Or worse, like he was some mistake she never really wanted. And then there was his younger sister, Haley, 2 years younger, spoiled beyond belief. Lillian adored her, praised her for everything. Meanwhile, Dylan could have moved mountains and still wouldn't have gotten so much as a smile. And you know what makes it worse? He remembers it starting way back when they were still kids. Lillian had this tone, that subtle sarcasm, that cold smile, always comparing, always finding some way to cut Dylan down. The only person who ever made Dylan feel seen was his dad, Mark. A quiet guy, didn't say much. But sometimes when Dylan was really trying, working on school stuff, helping around the house, Mark would just pat him on the shoulder and say, "You're doing good, son. Keep at it." That was it. That was the fuel. The one bright light in a house that constantly dimmed him. But that didn't last. When Dylan turned 18, everything crashed. His dad left. He was upstairs studying one night when the yelling started. He came down and saw Mark by the door, suitcase in hand. Lillian was losing it, screaming at him like a madwoman. Haley? Crying dramatically on the couch like it was some soap opera scene. Dylan froze. His dad looked at him just once and said, "Take care of them, all right?" And then he walked out. That moment haunted him. Because after that, Lillian rewrote the story. "Your father abandoned us," she'd say, "because he was selfish, because he didn't care." But Dylan knew, deep down, he knew his dad didn't leave them. He left her. She'd spent years sitting on the couch all day, whining about money, complaining about what they didn't have, nagging Mark to death for not being like the neighbors. And Mark, well, he got tired. He broke. Who wouldn't? And from then on, Dylan was the man of the house. Let me remind you, he was 18, barely out of high school. But suddenly he had to juggle university classes, a part-time office job, and somehow pay the bills. Because Lillian? She wasn't working. And Haley? She didn't even try. No job, no ambition. Just lounging around like a Kardashian on someone else's dime. Dylan paid for everything. Rent, groceries, internet. The internet, Haley used to post filtered selfies like she was an influencer. The Netflix Lillian binge-watched. The electricity that powered their nonsense. And still, every day, he'd hear Lillian say, "When are you going to get a girlfriend, Dylan? Look at your sister. She's had 7 boyfriends already, and she's only 26. Like dating was some kind of contest. Dylan didn't say much. He just kept grinding. Working, studying, holding it all together. Not because they deserved it, but because he didn't know any other way. And how did Lillian repay him? You're almost 30 and still living at home? No girlfriend? Still at that little job? You're a failure, Dylan. A real failure. Imagine hearing that after paying every single bill in that house. But Dylan stayed quiet until he couldn't anymore. It happened at dinner. He had just closed a massive project at work, brought in millions for his company, got a huge bonus. So he booked a nice restaurant and invited Lillian and Haley. Thought maybe they'd be proud. Big mistake. He told them about the deal, how hard he worked, how long it took. You know what Lillian said? She sipped her wine, looked him in the eye, and said, "Well, Dylan, what's it like being the failure of the family?" And Haley? She just laughed. And that was it. That was the moment. Dylan leaned in and said, calm, clear, "You want to talk about failure? Why don't you tell me what it feels like knowing Dad left because you were useless? Because you did nothing, gave nothing, and drained everything from him." And then he added, Oh, and I'm done paying your bills. Find a way to survive. I'm not your ATM anymore. Lillian exploded. How dare you talk to me like that? I gave you life. I always knew you were nothing. Your father left because he couldn't stand having a son like you. Can you imagine hearing that? Dylan didn't cry. He didn't yell. He just left. He went home, canceled every payment tied to that house, packed his things, and moved out. Alone. No guilt. No looking back. Of course, Lillian didn't take that well. The voicemails poured in. You can't just abandon us. We're your family. And then came the guilt trips. I'm your mother. I gave birth to you. I have nothing without you. Eventually, they showed up at his office. No warning. Just stood outside and ambushed him. So that's it, Dylan. You're going to leave us in the gutter? After everything I've done for you? And Dylan? He just looked at her and said, What have you done for me, Mom? I paid your rent for 10 years while you watched TV. If you want to keep living like a queen, get a job. Or ask Haley to help. Haley looked up from her phone, rolled her eyes. What's your problem, Dylan? You think you're better than us because you have a little job? Don't get cocky. There was fear behind her voice. For the first time, she realized the gravy train was gone. Dylan didn't respond. He got in his car and left them standing there. And yeah, it hurt. Of course it did. 10 years of being the only one who cared, who provided, who tried. But sometimes walking away is the only way to save yourself. He moved into a quiet apartment, started leading a team at work. He was good at it, respected finally. And then one day, months later, someone told him what happened to Lillian and Haley. Lillian tried working at a salon, lasted 4 days, tried retail, quit in a week, said it was beneath her. So Haley had to step up. She got a job at a supermarket, minimum wage. The same girl who mocked Dylan for not being a real man was now bagging groceries to keep the lights on. And Lillian? Still home, still watching shows, still complaining. No progress, no change. Haley was furious, said Dylan was cruel, said it wasn't fair. But you know what? Dylan didn't feel guilt. He felt justice. Because that wasn't revenge. That was a correction, a long overdue one. And Dylan? He's still thriving, still working, still healing. And finally, free. And that's Dylan's story. A man they called a failure, who turned out to be the only one holding everything together. He didn't walk away to hurt them. He walked away to heal himself. And in doing that, he found the kind of peace they'll never understand. Because real strength isn't in how much you carry, it's in knowing when to put it down. Thanks for listening. Subscribe for more powerful, true-to-life stories just like this one. Because sometimes the most relatable battles are the ones fought at home.